Dwyane Wade is immortalized in stone in front of the Kaseya Center as his statue was finally unveiled on a hot Sunday afternoon along Dwyane Wade Boulevard. We'll give you our thoughts on the event, Dwyane Wade's reactions to media, and our takeaways from Saturday's win over the Hornets on today's episode of Locked On Heat.
You are Locked On Heat, your daily Miami Heat podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, welcome to Locked On Heat, your daily podcast on the Miami Heat. Whether you're tuning in on YouTube, Odyssey, or your favorite podcast app, thanks so much for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. I'm Wes Goldberg, editor at allyoucanheat.com, here with David Ramil. Both of us are credentialed Heat media members who cover this team every day, and we are inside Kaseya Center, where just a few minutes ago, Dwyane Wade's statue was unveiled. It was a huge occasion, a big atmosphere, an exciting atmosphere. Tons of fans outside Kaseya Center to watch this. Dwyane Wade had some words. Pat Riley spoke. There was a lot of people on hand. Dwyane Wade's friends, Carmelo Anthony showed up, a lot of the players from the team, people in the organization, obviously. And then Dwyane Wade spoke with the media afterwards, and we had a chance to talk with him there, too. So we're going to talk about all of this in a jam-packed show today, and then get to our takeaways from Saturday night's win as we get on here. But first, reminder, your favorite podcast has a newsletter introducing the Locked On Heat daily newsletter, one stop for ultimate team and league coverage delivered right to your inbox. Sign up for free right now at LockedOnDaily.com. That's LockedOnDaily.com. Start your day with the all-new free Locked On Heat newsletter. A reminder that you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet, and you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. I was struck by the emotion of the entire event. Udonis Haslem gave, I thought, the best speech of the night. We heard from him. We heard from Pat Riley. We heard from Zaire Wade, Dwyane Wade's son. And you could see Dwyane Wade sort of dabbing tears away with a handkerchief during this entire thing. And I don't know about you, but all I could think about was what it had to be like to be Dwyane Wade in that moment, to see these people, your close friends and the people that helped get you to the point where you have a statue, say these wonderful things about you, and then to obviously hear from your son, who clearly looks up to him and admires him in a very meaningful way. And I kept putting myself, or tried to at least put myself in Dwyane Wade's shoes and being like, this has to feel impossible. And then hearing from him afterwards, it kind of, he kind of said as much. He's like, none of this even makes sense, even for somebody who has achieved so many things in the game of basketball that he has.
Yeah, that really did resonate as well. Like the idea of being immortalized in stone like that never happens. That's impossible to even consider. I mean, there are, I don't know, a handful of players at the NBA level that have achieved that kind of success. Michael Jordan, Shaquille O'Neal, Kobe Bryant, Dirk Nowitzki. Not too many. LeBron will get his at some point, and we can talk about some of the other players that might be immortalized in such a way, but very few. And for Dwyane and his journey and everything he's talked about, and UD, as only UD can, kind of summed up his journey about when he met this fresh-faced kid in 2003, 12 cavities in his mouth, and had to take him for hours to the dentist just so he could kind of get him up to speed on what to do with his life, etc. Like all these kinds of stories about a kid who had come from...
Do you believe the 12 cavities? That's a lot of cavities.
It's possible.
Have you ever had 12 cavities?
I don't know. It's possible, I guess. I've
never had a cavity.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, you've been very lucky then, because a lot of people have. Dwyane being one of them. But look, that's the whole point, though. He grew up in an impoverished neighborhood in Robbins. He spoke afterwards about not knowing whether or not having electricity in the house, because sometimes the power goes out because you can't afford to pay the bill. And you know what? You don't get to turn it on. You don't even have candles to light your way. You've got to kind of figure your way out in the dark. And Dwyane figured his way out of the dark metaphorically and reality in sense that he was able to build a career from Marquette to being the 5th pick in 2003 to being a statue in front of an arena where thousands of people will go and take pictures every day for the rest of its existence.
Yep.
Every time there's a Heat game, you will have thousands of fans who will line up and take a picture. When there are tourists who come in from the port of Miami, they're going to get off or go to Bayside, and they're going to go across the street, and they're going to be like, that's the statue of Dwyane Wade. And that's an incredible journey. And so to as you said, the emotions that are all kind of baked into this, you could see that from Dwyane. He's not an overtly emotional person by nature, But you can see that he was impacted by this. To hear these kinds of stories about where he was, even as a 5th pick in a lottery, we see this all the time. There are great players that are selected there. You don't get to be immortalized the way he was.
It's the step. I mean, the guy is one of the 75 greatest players in NBA history.
Incredible.
He's on that list. Multiple All-Star,
Hall of
3-time
Fame.
champion,
Yeah.
a Hall of Famer. This is bigger than a Hall of Famer. There is more people in the Hall of Fame than have a statue.
That's quite a feat,
right? It's a different level. It's like if you're on like the pyramid of greatness, like there's definitely the Hall of Fame level, but the people who think about the players who have statues: Michael Jordan, Magic Johnson, Larry Bird. Like they're not only players associated
franchise
with the history,
defining,
not just franchise defining. League defining. You can't tell the history of the NBA without those players.
I hadn't considered that.
And Dwyane Wade is part of that. Dwyane Wade is now one of these players who, and I do believe it, and sure, we don't have to get into comparisons. He's not Michael Jordan, okay? But you can't tell the history of the NBA without Dwyane Wade.
You know, you've talked about it before from your own perspective, like being a young person watching those 2003 era Heat games and everything else like that, and kind of attaching yourself to Dwyane and your fandom, and that carried you up to the Big Three era and everything else. But, you know, even beyond that, there were probably people that were older than you who watched Dwyane's style and was like, oh, this is who I want to emulate on the court. That Euro step, that kind of fade away, the athleticism, the way he attacks the basket, his dribble.
He is still one of the most influential players on
100%.
People in the league right now. You talk
100%.
to NBA players now, who did you watch? And it's always Kobe, right?
Kobe.
And you don't even really hear Michael Jordan anymore because
Not
they're
anymore?
too young. But you hear Kobe all the time. You hear Dwyane Wade probably the second most.
Maybe still shades of
In terms of
Iverson?
guards. Iverson a little bit, but even with Iverson, it's like you don't. That's more of like how people want to carry themselves. Like the
pound
bravado.
for pounds, that kind of.
But in terms of like the guys who on YouTube, you're just like, I need the over under. I need the Euro step. I need all this stuff.
Even more than LeBron.
100% more than LeBron.
Oh, yeah. It's insane to think about it. LeBron probably the better player overall, but in terms of what you're saying, the defining characteristic of the NBA, one of those players that has shaped people who come into the league and follow the league, Dwyane was probably more influential in that sense.
He's extremely influential. And I want to get back to the part that you said, and Will Manso, I think, was the one that asked Dwyane about this in the post game, in the media session that we had with him just a few minutes ago, about what does that feel like? You know, obviously Dwyane Wade, he told the story about growing up in Chicago, like you make the trip to the arena to take the picture with Michael Jordan's statue.
Right.
Not only do you have a statue, you become a landmark.
Yeah.
You become a landmark that's associated with that city, and what is, you know, for me, what the emotional part for me is, you're exactly right. Like, this is the guy who not only got me into basketball in the way that I am now, but also just into, like, he showed me what winning was in sports. Like, I wasn't around for the 72 Dolphins.
Damn right.
Like, I don't remember. I wasn't born for 1984. Right. You know, when the Dolphins last made the Super Bowl. Right. Like, I wasn't that. None of that mattered to me. I didn't really care. I knew Dan Marino growing up, obviously, but I'm like, he never won anything. That was what, by the time that I was watching football, that's what Marino was already associated with, was he never got over the hump, and he never did.
Right.
And Dwyane comes in here in 2003, and 3 years later is hoisting the Larry O'Brien Trophy, and he's the best player in the world. And there was 2 times, I think, in Dwyane Wade's career where he was the best player on the planet. And it was in the 2006 finals, and it was when he was jumping on the scorer's table in 2009 at
the peak of his powers,
with a lousy Miami Heat team. And you just wonder, like, what could have been different. And obviously, we don't have to do the big what if, because maybe the big 3 never happens and whatever. But like, if those teams were even okay. Right, like what he could have. I think he would have an MVP, on his resume. He might be even greater than what we're talking about now. He might have, in everybody's collective mind, leapt over Kobe Bryant as the second best shooting guard of all time.
That's a tough one.
But I think it's all. But like all that stuff meaning is, this guy was at one point the greatest player on the planet, and we were able to watch him in Miami for what was a relatively young franchise. Right, this organization has only been around for 35 years, and you think about those teams that have statues, the Lakers, the Celtics, the Bulls, like these are some of the original teams in the NBA. It took them much longer than 30 plus years to get statues in front of those arenas. And the fact that the Heat have done that, do you remember what are the teams that the Heat were the expansion franchise with? It was
1989 Charlotte
Minnesota,
Hornets. The Charlotte Hornets.
Charlotte and Orlando were all within those those couple of years, right? 88 to 89 or 90 or whatever.
Yeah.
So those 4 teams. Those are Miami's peers in terms of who they came. Those are the contemporaries.
Is there a Kevin Garnett statue?
There's not. He never won a championship in Minnesota.
There
Nor
probably
should
won't
there
be. There probably won't be. Yeah.
And those are the teams those are the contemporaries of the Miami Heat, and yet they don't stand with those teams. They're associated with winning the way that the Lakers and the Celtics are. That's how people think about the Miami Heat now, and it's remarkable.
Yeah, no, and Dwyane spoke about that too, like the fact that has helped to define his franchise and everything else like that.
That was my question.
Yeah, that's right.
Yes,
that's right. And a good question it was, and a great answer from him. Like I think that was one of the things that really stood out to me was just seeing him. He's, we've talked about this before. He's talked about it. It's pretty well known. In 2003, when he came in as that fresh-faced kid, like he wasn't really comfortable in front of media.
Right.
And as over time passed, he grew much more comfortable in that regard.
He's so good
but
at
the
it.
way he was now, the way I've seen him when talking to him personally, and then also like at the Hall of Fame and everything else like that, like the emotions are so interwoven into his responses now because it's just they're part of who he is. He seems to be truly grateful and appreciative of these moments in a way that I don't know I necessarily thought he was during his playing career, but he seemed to have gained an experience and an appreciation for these moments with that passage of time.
That word moment keeps coming up with Dwyane Wade too. Like Zaire was talking about how his dad is all about appreciating moments. I've heard I think LeBron James talk about how even during the Big Three era, Dwyane Wade would pull him aside and be like, this is a moment. Like,
right.
Appreciate this right now.
Right.
And I think there is something about him that he has that perspective or wisdom or whatever word we want to use. But he's just the recognition of, hey, this is important. I'm going to remember this. But even like that was when he jumped on the scorer's table. He wasn't he knew it was a moment, but he didn't know it was going to be a statue defining moment. He just thought like you said, he's like, I saw some of my favorite players do it and it looked really cool, so I wanted to do it.
I'm trying to think who back. I
wanted to ask you that.
Yeah, I can't recall a player before 2009 at the end of a championship. Maybe Jordan. Maybe
I'm assuming Jordan had done it. I just don't remember that happening.
Yeah, Larry Bird can't get up over a table.
No, Larry Bird's not doing it. Larry Bird would have looked like the second time Dwyane Wade tried to do it, and he broke his knee.
Not even. He would have been like he would have reached for the 6-pack of Miller Lite underneath the table. That's what he would have done. He's not doing any of that.
Speaking of moments, I thought Dwyane Wade talked about how this was sort of maybe Bam's moment right now in time, what he means to the organization. We were talking about this before we started recording. I'm like, is there a player who's the next player who gets a statue? Right, within a week we have a statue erected in front of Kaseya Center, Pat Riley's name stamped onto the court. This is a team now that has history, and I think that's really interesting. But what comes next? Like, what's the next piece of Heat history? We'll talk about that next and a little bit more coming up on Locked On Heat.
Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel America's #1 sportsbook. Okay, because right now new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. And sometimes you're watching a game, maybe you're watching the Dolphins
I'm
debacle.
The Dolphins, guys. Like the season's over, they're 2-5. At least make some money on
They're
them
gonna
being
go
terrible and disappointing.
6-game winning streak. I'm calling it right here. You can check out the latest stats. You can view live play-by-play, and there's so much more, and all on the same page where you place your bets. But all you've got to do is visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. We'll be right back.
6-game on FanDuel?
Absolutely not.
Thanks for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. The best way to support the show, like and subscribe to us on YouTube. Make sure you follow us on your favorite podcast app. So what comes next, I think, for everybody involved, I think is an interesting question, because this does now feel like it's a, without going too overboard on this,
a new chapter?
It is a chapter, and I feel like the Heat have been doing this on purpose. That, as an organization, and you talk to people within the organization and say, we're not the expansion franchise anymore. We're not a young team. We've been here. We have 3 championships. We've been in countless NBA finals, playoff team, all the things. Like we have the banners and everything to show for it. And you could internally there has been that focus on we gotta tell that story. And I think it's not a coincidence that within the week of their 35th season starting, right? 35th season of the Heat, that they named the court after Pat Riley and erected the Dwyane Wade statue. And I think that this does feel like this next chapter of whatever it is that the Miami Heat organization.
Are they like a legacy franchise at this point? Like,
think
honestly,
they are.
despite 35 years being a relatively short amount of time, they're up there with the Knicks and the Lakers and the Celtics and everything else like that.
That's what people. That's what
The
people think of them
association,
like. Yeah.
Because they achieved so much success,
earned it.
especially over the past 20-something years of Pat Riley's tenure here. I mean, 29 years now, because we just saw him being immortalized in
I mean, what is it,
1995.
since 2003?
Yeah.
No, I'm sorry, 2006. They've been to 5 NBA Finals.
6.
Since 2006.
Yeah.
6 NBA Finals. I'm sorry, 6 NBA Finals.
Right. So it's an impressive run that they've
7
had.
NBA Finals.
No. 2006,
the
the
four,
big four, the before the big
and then
three,
the 2 in the
and
Jimmy Butler era.
Oh yeah, correct.
7 NBA Finals. Look at us doing math. Live on air. While somebody's singing next door.
I'm not sure, but they're celebrating our math skills clearly.
So 7 NBA Finals since 2006. I mean, there's not a lot of organizations that have done that, right? It's the Spurs, it's the Warriors. These are the teams that have the highest winning percentage and the most success over that time span. So I think a lot of that is. So my question then is, what comes next? If whatever the next chapter is,
Well,
and that's not necessarily to make predictions.
Some
but
people are considering, and I hate to interrupt, but some people are considering, is this a way of like the team kind of masking their deficiencies on the court? I've seen that kind of tossed around by Heat fans, and I don't think that's the case. I think it's a matter of showing the kind of things that you have to as one of these top tier franchises. I think you could have made that argument maybe in 2016 or following 2016 that you'd want to honor some of your past because you wanted to show publicly and to the other players around the league how much you respect your organization and the players that have come through its doors because of what happened with Dwyane. But that bridge has been repaired. It's been rebuilt after it was burnt. And so I don't think that there's any issue with that anymore. I think they're just going through this.
I would say that first of all, it doesn't make any sense. Like, this stuff takes years of planning, months of planning. Like, they didn't know that they were going to lose to the Orlando Magic on opening night. Like, they didn't know that. You know, they didn't even know they were going to be playing the Orlando Magic. On
Awfully
opening
coincidental,
night, right? Yeah. So it is that whole thing is sort of funny. No, and also this is very much sort of business operations that is erecting a statue, putting that. This is all marketing, right? This is separate of basketball operations. So that whole thing is a little silly to me. But is there anybody else that deserves a statue? Pat Riley said something interesting. He kind of snuck in a Udonis Haslem thing. Did you catch that when Riley was talking? I did. Obviously, he was talking offhand, but
yeah, I don't know. I can't. UD doesn't strike me as the statue type.
He doesn't.
Like that he would want it. And I don't think he is defining of the franchise in some ways, even if his production on the court doesn't match his influence off of it.
I mean, I love Udonis Haslem, and I don't even mean this as an insult. He would be literally the worst player ever with a statue.
Yeah, I don't think it's likely to happen. I think there would be some public backlash for it.
They'd be like, that's still too much.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
I don't think there is a player. I don't think Alonzo Mourning gets one. I don't think
he's not.
He's not. He's right now the only. Dwyane Wade is the only player who I think so far gets a statue.
They're honored in different ways by having their jersey retired.
Yep,
and that's fine. Nobody will wear 33 or 40 or 10 or 6 at some point ever again.
I think even if Jimmy were to win a championship here, he would not get a statue because so much of his career was played elsewhere.
Yeah, that's fair.
It wasn't long enough.
No, Dwyane in the year and a half that he spent away from home, if you want to look at it from that perspective. Aside from that, it was a really long career, 16 seasons, 17 seasons. And he spent most of it here in Miami, and he won here, and he grew here. And again, as you made the point earlier, he defined this franchise.
There's an association, right, where I don't think Jimmy Butler is associated with the Miami Heat as clearly not as much as Dwyane Wade.
He's associated with Jimmy Butler.
Jimmy Butler's associated with Jimmy Butler, and that's fine. And I think it's like LeBron's not really associated with the Lakers, right? Like LeBron's like barely associated with the Miami Heat.
No, LeBron is LeBron.
LeBron's LeBron, and so it is just sort of how these people carry themselves, and that's whatever it is. It's fine. But to me, what was striking is that like Jimmy Butler's name doesn't even come up today, right? But whose name keeps coming up? It's Bam, right? Like Dwyane Wade mentioned Bam in his thing. He's like, it was me, it was Pat Riley, and it was Zoe, and then it was me and UD, and now it's Bam. And I think Bam has a chance to be the next Heat player with a statue. Now, clearly, he has not earned that yet. Like that is not at all what I am saying. But if we're going to try to guess who's the next player to get a statue in front of Kaseya Center, I think the only name on the board would have to be Bam. I don't know that there's another name that's even remotely plausible.
Clearly, no, absolutely not. No,
And he would have to do a lot more, obviously.
No doubt.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's within the realm of possibility because he's drafted by this team.
Yep.
He's achieved success here. He's reached the finals here. He's won Olympic golds as a member of the Heat organization. If he plays another 10, 13, 14 years, and that all seems very realistic considering the careers of players nowadays, and he achieves a championship, maybe two, and the more
It would take
individual
championships. It would take multiple championships
I don't know. I don't know that it would.
for the statue.
I don't know that it would, because again, this is a player that is part of the organization. It kind of baked into the whole franchise story, the narrative here, and Bam is going to be carrying the torch as that defining player. He is the centerpiece.
Does anybody have a statue who has only one championship? It feels like to get a statue, it's multiple championships. Like we're talking again, like he could be a Hall of Famer, jersey retired, number retired, all of that stuff, and still not get the statue. To me, statue is a level of greatness that is just so hard to reach. Again, it's not just you're not part of the franchise story. You're part of the history of the NBA, and that's why you get a statue.
Look, you could be right. You could be right from that perspective.
It would be multiple championships, I think.
But it just hasn't been. There hasn't been another player like that. Like UD, as much as he's part of everything that's been part of the organization or defined the organization for 20 years, he just wasn't as good a player as Bam is.
Right.
So it's kind of you have to have a combination of both.
Well, you have to have all of it.
Yeah.
You can't be missing anything. That's what it takes to get a statue. The resume has
the checklist has to be impeccable.
Every single one of those things have to be checked. There is a little bit of an elephant in the room in regards to the statue. We're going to talk about that, plus we'll get to our quick takeaways from Miami's first win of the season after this here on Locked On Heat.
Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. They've got a new feature called Gametime Picks that makes getting tickets to see your favorite teams play live even easier. Gametime's Picks filters out the fluff to show you only the incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. No need to waste time with that. You just get the seats you want, and you know exactly how much you're going to be paying for. One of their great features is the all-in pricing. You can just see exactly what the total up front is, and you don't have to worry about any surprise fees at checkout. You got their seat views. Get a panoramic view from on the app from your seat before you buy, so you know exactly where you're going to be sitting. No obstructions needed here, and so many other great features. You can do it too if you download the Gametime app today, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. You can take all the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime Picks. Now, terms do apply, but create an account, redeem the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download Gametime today. What time is it? It's game time. We'll be right back.
Thanks again for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. The best way to support the show, leave a 5-star rating and review on your podcast app. Hit that subscribe button on YouTube. Like the video. Comment below. What did you think about Dwyane Wade's statue? The elephant in the room. David. Is it good?
It's hard for me to answer that. I think the statue works on some levels. Like, it is art, and you have to consider that. And I know that sounds perhaps a little douchey, and perhaps like I'm trying to evade the question or anything like that. But I think you have to consider that. It's not just a realistic impression of somebody. It's art. As such, it works on lots of levels. It conveys emotion. You can see the intensity of the moment. But I'll say what everybody else is thinking. The head does not match Dwyane Wade. It does not fit what he looked like in 2009 when he jumped aboard the scorer's table. It did not look like him. He looks older. His jaw looks swollen. It looks like he's wearing the beard that he has today. And I don't mean to knock the artist. They did a phenomenal job. Again, there's something there. Had they chiseled a half an inch here and a half an inch there, see, people are having reactions to this, but everybody, I think that's just the way it came across to me, is that it just did not look like him. Like, most of the face looked fine. It just looked a little swollen.
Yeah, I'm with you. At first, I was like, oh, okay, is that the right statue? Like, did they send the wrong one? Like, I don't, it doesn't really look like Dwyane. And now, I will say this, I didn't get to get up close to it because everything was around it, obviously. I will see it in person much closer, probably tomorrow before the Pistons game. And I will make a more precise judgment at that time. I'll say this, though. Dwyane Wade was very involved to the point where he visited that statue and saw that statue
multiple times,
4 different times before we all saw it unveiled today, and he seems very happy with it. So, I guess that's the only opinion that matters. Is like if Dwyane's happy with it, then everybody's happy with it. It says Heat number 3. It's
instead
unmistakable
of
pose.
Instead of El Heat, remember it was Latin Appreciation Night
That's
or
true.
something
They
like
did
that.
make some creative, and I think that's probably the right way to go because that's the real jersey. But when you take a picture in front of it, it's going to be unmistakably Dwyane Wade because of the pose, because it says Heat, because it's number 3. And maybe when you take the photos, you just don't necessarily capture the whole.
They're calling it Lawrence Fishburne. They're saying
I didn't see that.
They're saying it looks like Lawrence Fishburne from The Matrix. Like, that's going too far. I don't agree.
It was a little bit like you kind of sensed it from the crowd too when they revealed it. There was kind of like a like, you're like, oh, okay. And there was smoke.
It sure is a statue. That's
that's
a statue.
You can almost hear the record scratch, and then Ron Howard just being like, "You're probably wondering how I got here." But it was a little anticlimactic with the reveal, a little bit. But it wasn't Ronaldo's bust bad. It wasn't
no, it didn't look inhuman.
It looked human. It looked like a basketball player, and it looked like somebody wearing Dwyane Wade's jersey.
It looked Dwyane Wade-ish, and the face just looked a little off. I think that's all. You know what? Looking at him today, maybe can I offer a possibility? Again, using an artistic license here. Maybe they're trying to say that this moment is not just Dwyane Wade in 2009. Maybe this is Dwyane Wade in 2003, in 2009, in 2019,
maybe
in 2024,
2073.
This is Dwyane Wade eternalized. This is Dwyane Wade made eternal. And this is a longer lasting version of him.
Dwyane says if you get really up close, you can actually see the bubble gum.
He loved.
That's what I'm saying. I think he loves the statue.
And he said to the Herald, he said to Anthony Chang of the Miami Herald, he's vain. He wasn't going to let them put something out there that he wasn't happy with.
I got to see it. Before I make any real conclusions, I got to see it.
He signed off on it.
He signed off on it. He must like it. Really quick, the Heat beat the Hornets 114-106 to get their first win of the season on Saturday night. Jimmy Butler, much more engaged than he was in Game 1.
No doubt.
Doubled his touches, led the team in usage, led the team in touches,
brought the
led
ball
the team
up
with 26 points, 8 rebounds, and 8 assists. That, to me, was the big takeaway from that Hornets game is, okay, Jimmy got right. And I think that's what it's going to look like in this 5-out offense because he was also the one creating advantages, driving to the basket. To me, I'm more impressed with the 8 assists than the 26 points because he was creating those buckets for his teammates, kicking out to Terry Rozier, Tyler Hero, etc. I thought he did a really nice job in that one.
Yes, Jimmy did a great job. I am still concerned, though. This is 2 straight games, and I know it's just 2 games, but the offense looks sluggish. They cannot generate offense easily. Still only 80. What the hell is going on over there? 86 field goal attempts. I don't know if this is church choir. This is Sunday. Something's happening over there. This is filming Sister Act 3 next door. I don't know what to make of this team and the way that they're playing right now, but it still doesn't look great. And again, the fluidity isn't there. The efficiency on the 3-point shot was there, 14 of 34. You look at the Los Angeles Lakers, they shot 14 of 34 coincidentally on the same night, but they also scored 130 points in a win. So I don't know what it's going to take for Miami to generate more offense other than just being able to get better looks, more looks, and maybe taking more free throws as well.
Yeah, I mean, actually, I thought they got to the line quite a bit against Charlotte. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I think if we expected them, and I think I'm guilty of this, based off what the preseason was, to just continue that and how good they looked and how fluid that offense looked in the preseason, I think that was clearly a mistake, right? They ran into a wall, almost quite literally, against the Orlando Magic, and then they had a little bit of a get-right game against Charlotte. It looked much closer than it did in the preseason against Charlotte than it did against Orlando. But, hey, like the regular season, when teams are actually preparing for you and caring, it just provides a little bit more friction. And I think that friction wasn't there in the preseason, and I think that there's that part of it now, and I think the Heat are just going to it was always going to be really hard to basically revamp the entire offense and install a 5-out offense. And I think maybe we took that for granted based on what we saw in the preseason. But that was a step in the right direction against Charlotte is sort of my main takeaway there. All right, before we get any more singing, we'll wrap it up here. Thanks for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. Like, comment, subscribe on YouTube. Follow us on your favorite podcast app. We will be back Monday night with our recap of the Pistons game. A reminder that your favorite podcast now is a newsletter introducing the Locked On Heat daily newsletter, one stop for ultimate team and league coverage delivered right to your inbox. Sign up for free now at LockedOnDaily.com. That's LockedOnDaily.com to start your day with the all-new free Locked On Heat newsletter. We'll let the singers carry us out.
Whoopi Goldberg.